It's all good. Good evening. I'm calling the Columbia County Board of Commissioners July 2nd, 2024 meeting to order. Asking Vice Chairman Malier to open us with.
Thank you. If you'll bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day and the wonderful weather we've had. Bless us today as we go forward with our agenda and do the people's work. Help us as we realize that these decisions we make are often difficult and affect not only ourselves but our neighbors, the community as a whole. Be with us as we make these decisions, and in fairness and in truth. In your name we pray. Amen.
For the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Record show we have a full quorum of commissioners. Commissioners, you have the minutes from the 2024 packet. If you've had a chance to review them, I'll accept a motion to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept them as presented. Second.
Questions? In favor, raise your right hand. Johnson, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for your consideration, we would ask to change item I-1A1. This would be a change from a second reading back to a first reading. This is the hotel ordinance that we did last meeting. After discussing this with the industry lobbyist and some of our local hoteliers, we've made a change to some of the terms of that ordinance. So we can talk about that at the appropriate time if you're so inclined.
Consider it changed to the first reading. Special recognitions, we'll go straight into the consent agenda. Commissioners, you have the consent agenda in front of you. Each item on this agenda has been through the necessary committees. Votes required to be on the consent agenda. So if they still meet with your approval, I'll accept the motion to approve them all.
Chairman, I make a motion to accept all the consent agenda items as presented. Second.
Favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. On to you, Commissioner Skinner.
Yes, sir. I make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2401, adopting chapter 22, Business and Business Regulations, article 9, hotels and motels.
Second.
Johnson, will you tell us the change?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so it was an issue with the length of stay. Originally, we had in the ordinance, there would be no longer than 14 days in a 30-day period. The industry's asking that we change that to no longer than 30 days in a 31-day period. That would still, I think, meet the intent of the ordinance on our part, but it would allow them to align it better with the way that they pay their taxes and the way that they I guess really run their operation. So again, we've been lobbied by at least 4 local hoteliers that reached out to me personally, and then also the lobbyists for the industry in Atlanta reached out to me today and asked for this change. And I've run this by the county attorney and staff, and we feel like it's an appropriate change. So this would be a first reading. That is the only change that we have.
Questions? Again, this ordinance is to give the landowner and the law enforcement the opportunity to remove a squatting in a hotel room in Columbia County and not paying the bill.
Among other things.
Yeah, among other things. Questions? All in favor, raise your right hand. First reading passes. I believe you're still up, Commissioner.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Next item, file RZ 240606. I make a motion to approve the request for the master sign plan for property located at tax map 080 parcel 006.
Second.
We have here a request for a master sign plan. This is a new tenant in the old Harley Davidson. The request is to go right here, a principal wall sign of 119.5 square feet. That's allowed by code, so we're good there. But they're also asking for 3 additional wall signs, total approximately 153 square feet, which exceeds our allowable square footage, which is 53.75. So they're asking to increase that. They're also asking to increase their sign posted out there, the old Harley Davidson sign, out of your screen here. Typically, they could reface the sign, but because that sign is such a unique shape, they're having to go back with a square, which then makes that sign exceed our sign limit. This is on the interstate. This is a large building, and staff has recommended.
And as far as loud and what they're asking?
So the existing property, it's a 26,000 square foot building. So per county code, they can have 125 square feet on the freestanding sign. I'm sorry, in the wall sign. The freestanding sign could be up to 150 square feet, 125 and 150. The principal wall sign is 119.5, so that's good. Big red line power sports. They're asking for 3 additional wall signs that total 153 square feet. They're only allowed 53.75, so it's about 100 square feet more than what's allowed by code. But it is a 26,000 square foot building. The wall is 250 long, so scale-wise it works.
And it is on the interstate.
Correct.
Questions? Motion is second on the floor. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Still have you.
Yes, sir. Next item, file RZ 240607. I make a motion to approve the request for the rezoning from RA to CC for the property located at tax map 050, portion of parcel 002G, with the following conditions. Provided the proximity to a state, state route, the county will require a letter of intent to permit from GDOT prior to preliminary plat approval. Channelizing islands and a two-foot raised center island on William Few Parkway are required to prevent left turn movement from the right in, right out driveways per GDOT's driveway and encroachment manual. An extension of the existing right turn lane on William Few Parkway serving southbound traffic will be required. A full-width overlay of William Few Parkway extending to the limits of their respective impacts will be required, approximately 500 linear feet.
Second.
Beth Connell.
Hi, I'm Beth Connell. My address is 2538 Falling Branch Lane, Evans, Georgia. And I'm requesting respectfully that the commission deny this request to rezone for the Parker's gas station. Part of the reason for the basis of it is that we are getting oversaturated with gas stations in this area. In about a 2.5 or 3 mile radius, you have 5 or potentially 7 gas stations. There are 2 at the corner of William Street and Washington Road. There are 2 at the corner of Lewiston and Columbia. This one would make the 5th. And then depending on where you put your circle at, you could potentially gather the 2 that are up on William Few and Lewiston Road. So there's clearly plenty of gas stations available for the community to use. If you look at, I think it's hard to argue that Chick-fil-A doesn't have a very successful business model if we all try to get Chick-fil-A in the evening. And at one time, their closest radius was they didn't allow another restaurant within 5 mile radius of an existing one. So clearly, we're looking at just not simply creating more market share, we're just diluting profits or diluting and sharing what's already existing amongst all these gas stations. The other basis of this is if I use the Columbia County's fact sheet for CC zoning, rezoning, it states on there that convenience stores with gas pumps is limited use. So my question is, with potentially 7 gas stations in the area, where does the limit come in? It's clearly identified as a limited use on here. Finally, with respect to the public, the Vision 2035, there were all the public meetings that were held, and there were over 1,000 comments that were made with respect to Vision 2035. On that, there were more than 65% was requesting more stringent development for commercial. And then of that, on 80% of the respondents, so over 800 of our citizens responded that they either wanted no further development at the community, William Few is a community crossroad, or they wanted professional office or small-scale development. The other corner is already zoned, which is development. So I challenge whether or not this fits in and is consistent with comments that the citizens have already made. 70% of the people who commented requested a development plan for the community crossroads. I've checked on the Planning and Zoning Committee and I have website and I have not found a detailed plan. Also last year when this came up, in about a 2-week span between Planning and Zoning meeting and this meeting, we had almost 100 citizens sign a petition requesting it not be rezoned from RA. So I think public has spoken, and I'm requesting that this not be approved. Thank you.
Any questions?
Did the applicant request, our activity?
Yeah, but then they would,
Okay, so that's not part of this.
correct.
There's an accompanying variance request that goes with this. Today, we did receive a bill from the applicant asking to remove 4-hour use. A couple other variances they had originally requested, so that is updated in the next item. If this was approved, we'd address
Address her question about the gas station limited use.
Under section 9097 in the Code of Ordinances, that is the allowed use table for commercial and industrial use. As indicated, they're allowed within the respective districts standards found in the right-hand column of the use. There is a section on that that talks about what additional use required for any part of any application, whether limited use have been met.
Any other questions? You know, one of the greatest challenges that we face is balancing private property rights, what public wants, comes in conflict with the private property rights. So the Constitution allows folks who own property to profit from their property. Probably one of the hardest things to deal with is that a person does not want something to happen to somebody else's property. Their property rights don't flow over to that property. Property owner has rights. Work to balance that the best we can. Any other comments? Have motion second on the floor. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes. Mr. Skinner, you're still up.
Yes, sir. File EA 240608. I make a motion to approve the request for the variance for property located at tax map 050, portion of parcel 002G, by removing the required structural buffers against the western property line with the following conditions. A 10-foot landscape strip in compliance with county code is required along the western lot line of the proposed development in Quarry Access Road.
Second.
This is the one that I mentioned earlier that had several variance requests originally. The applicant requested change them. The request was a 24-hour allowance removed, so they will have to operate under the code this now, which has them closing by 11. They also requested the 30-foot structural buffer to the north be waived. No longer need to do that. They've worked around that. They did originally request a variance from the separation requirement. They were required to have 100 feet separation from the property line. They were able to move the building, so no need to waive that. And then they are asking, the one variance they are asking for is to change this 30-foot buffer here down to a 10-foot buffer, which is the motion that Skinner made, the placed on it. The landscape strip, compliance with county codes required. So code says 30-foot structural buffer, not be able to access that road if that were in place. So instead, they're asking for a 10-foot.
Questions?
So just to make it perfectly clear, on the north side, they're fitting all requirements.
Following code.
And on the west side, next to the quarry is where this variance is being granted.
Correct.
In lieu of that, we're putting in a 10-foot.
Landscape strip
Landscape.
versus a 30-foot structural buffer.
Questions? Motion and second on the floor. All in favor, raise your right hand. Carries.
Sir, Mr. Chair, next item is VA 240607. I make a motion to approve the request for the variance for property located at tax map 029, parcel 0248, and tax map 028, parcel 027B, to increase the allowed size and number of directional signs.
Second.
This is a club car out at the White Oak Industrial Park. They are looking for some wayfinding signage. You see examples here. Currently, the code says these signs cannot be taller than 3 feet high and more than 3 square feet area. They are looking to go to 11.25 square feet and 5 foot tall. This is direct tractor trailer traffic as well as people trying to find the sales center, the used car center, parts department. So actually, some of these signs may have already been installed. They will have to relocate them. They were installed improperly, so we will.
This is for the entire park?
Just for the club car parcel.
Questions? Motion second on the floor. All in favor, raise your right hand. Legal matters, request for review by committee. By the public comments or participation. Now we go to executive session. We have items to deal with. Executive session. There, you have the first one.
I make a motion to approve an annual additional supplement for District Attorney Bobby Christine, amount of $12,000.
Second.
We just approved our budget, as you all know. This was an oversight on my part. This was supposed to be in the budget. We actually had an allowance in the budget, but did not include the supplement. So I asked that this be added to the agenda tonight to include it. It was my intent to budget for this.
Questions? All in favor, raise your right hand. Carries. Commissioner Caraway.
I make a motion to approve $2,900 to Ronald and Andrea Allen, parcel 056D, obtain additional temporary and permanent easements.
Second.
Down to the last one or two, I believe, on this project. I had a conversation about one of those remaining parcels today, so we'll get.
Questions? All in favor, raise your right hand. Carries.
I make a motion to approve $17,100 to Heidi Adarsh Galati, parcel 060045C, 1,400 to Robert McFadden, parcel 067099A, and $40,000 to Phipps, parcel 06701, $53,700 to Eric Stewart, parcel 060035, to obtain right-of-way and/or easements for the widening project.
Second.
This makes 113 parcels closed. We have about 43% complete, so almost halfway.
Questions? Right hand. Motion carries. Seeing no other items on the agenda, I only need one more motion.
Make a motion to adjourn?
All in favor, raise your right hand. We are adjourned.